Paradise hits like a lie when you're grieving. Hannah, Bob step into Maui, and a stranger bumps her, apologizes, and then vanishes like she was never there. And at a juice bar with a menu filled with unusual drink names, Bob casually asks the barista, "How's the pressure today?" This is Chapter 10 of The Trouble with Angels. Drink Up, The World's About to End by Glory Fink. If you want to keep binge reading Bob and Hannah's adventures right now, start at Chapter 1, link in show notes, and the Season 1 hub is also linked in show notes. And if you know someone who loves afterlife bureaucracy with feelings, cosmic workplace comedy, Paradise is Haunted Actually vibes, protective angel adjacent caretakers, liminal travel stops, or a juice bar menu that feels like a spiritual threat, please share this episode with them. Previously, on The Trouble with Angels, Hannah dies expecting answers and wakes up in your afterlife, where hell looks like a luxury wellness corridor with suspiciously cheerful policies. She learns fast this place runs on paperwork, rehab theater, and exhausted angels who keep smiling anyway. Cracks spread through the system, messages circulate, authority feels wrong, and creation glitches like a machine missing its supervisor. Bob steps in, tired, competent, and deeply unglamorous about the cosmos, keeping Hannah moving because he refuses to let her be alone in the dark. And above it all, Gabriel and Michael sweep through their own chaos, growing certain that something is very wrong. By the end of Chapter 9, the universe still smiles like everything is fine, but the air is changing, and Hannah is still not done demanding her audience with God. Maui should have been impossible. Not because humans can't get to Maui. Humans went to Maui all the time. Humans went to Maui on points and honeymoon desperation and credit card debt, and the kind of optimism that only lasted as long as the hotels kept arriving fresh and fluffy. No, Maui should have been impossible because I hadn't earned it. Grief has a way of turning pleasure into contraband, like your body is a cop and your heart is a teenager and joy is a stolen car. And yet, here I was. Bob brought me through an ordinary doorway that pretended it was part of a normal day. It wasn't a portal with a choir. It wasn't a tear in the sky. There was no dramatic wind, no swirling light, no heaven-branded elevator music. It was a door. Just a door. The kind of door you could walk through without thinking. Which was, in retrospect, the most terrifying part. I remember stepping forward and feeling the air change, not in a dramatic way, but in a way that made my skin prickle, like I'd walked into a room that had been recently cleaned with something expensive. The light hit differently on the other side, softer, more flattering. Time itself felt rounded, like the sharp corners had been sanded down, like the day had been put through a filter. I didn't like it. It felt off. I looked around and Maui spread out in front of me like a brochure. The sky was rude. The ocean was showing off. The air smelled like salt and flowers and somebody's sunscreen fantasy. See? Bob said, as if he'd done me a favor. His voice was casual, but his body wasn't. He stood like he was on duty, even in Paradise, like the universe could jump him at any moment and he'd have to throw hands. Bob always looked like that. Not scared, not nervous, more like ready. I stared at him, waiting for the part where he explained what the hell we were doing here. He didn't. He did that thing he did where he acted like the obvious was obvious. Like we were just out running errands, like we were picking up milk. Exactly when are we going to see God? In due time. Bob started and then stopped himself. He pinched the bridge of his nose, like the sentence had given him a heartache. I watched him. I watched the way he looked at the world. Not the sunset, not the beach, not the palm trees, the edges, the corners, the places where reality might come apart if you tug too hard. You're stalling, I said. Bob gave me a look, not angry, not offended, just patient. Like I was a teenager and he was the exhausted uncle who had volunteered to pick me up from the party And now I was yelling at him for not being my dad. Rounds, paperwork. You're not my only work order, Hannah. I just looked at him, judging. It's just a stop. Later, I would think about the way he said it. How he believed it when he said it. How it was still a stall. How sometimes your lies aren't even lies. They're just hope in disguise. I took a breath. The air tasted like fruit, like money, like calm. I hated it. That's when a woman bumped into me. Not a hard bump, not an aggressive bump, not a watch where you're going bump. More like a gentle collision, two people intersecting. But the moment before she hit me, I smelled her perfume. Tea roses, specifically. Soft, sweet, old-fashioned in a way that made my stomach drop. Because it was familiar, and I couldn't place it. I turned my head automatically, my brain doing that reflexive cataloging grief makes you do. Who was that? Do I know her? Did she know Bella? Did she know my mother? Was that sent in a hospital? Was that sent in a church? Was that sent in a hallway where I begged the universe to stop taking people from me? Oh, I'm so sorry. Her voice was bright, almost sing-song, like she walked out of a small-town gift shop with wind chimes on the door and a cashier who called everyone hun. I wasn't looking where I was going. Her eyes flickered over me, too quick and too sharp for how silly her apology sounded. Like she hadn't meant to be seen. Like she hadn't meant to be perceived. I opened my mouth to say it was fine. And the space in front of me was empty. Not empty because she moved. Empty like she'd never been there. I blinked because that's what you do when your brain refuses to accept the footage. There were people around us. Tourists, locals, someone laughing, someone dragging a suitcase with wheels that clicked too loudly over the pavement. No one reacted. No one looked. No one said, "Where did she go?" I turned in a slow circle trying to find her. My skin went cold under the sun. Bob's eyes tracked the crowd, fast and careful. His mouth tightened. Then he did what he always did when the universe did something impossible. He made it mundane. "Come on, let's get you something to drink." "That woman," I said. "What woman?" His eyes stayed forward. His voice stayed level. It would have been easier if he'd looked startled. It would have been easier if he'd cursed or frowned or done anything that made me feel less crazy. But Bob didn't do crazy. Bob did move along. "Bob," he sighed like I was tugging his sleeve at the worst possible moment. "I didn't see anyone," he said, and I knew he was lying because he was too good at lying. Or maybe he was telling the truth in a way that was worse. Maybe he had seen her and didn't count it as seeing. Maybe he had seen Stranger Things, and this didn't even make the list. My heart was pounding, and it wasn't from the Maui stairs. The juice bar sign hung ahead of us, bright and calm and utterly confident in its own existence. It looked like it had always been there, like it had been built around the idea of us arriving, like it was waiting. I followed Bob because the alternative was standing in paradise shaking like a leaf while everyone else took selfies. Inside, the juice bar was what the internet would call a vibe. Serene, clean, aggressively healthy. The kind of place where the plants look watered and the employees look hydrated and the entire room smelled like expensive eucalyptus and good intentions. It didn't feel human. It felt adjacent. Like reality had scooted sideways an inch. The menu board glowed behind the counter with cheerful fonts and colors that made my eyes hurt. And the names, oh, the names. Grief grounding. Rage reset. Mercy mango. Lilikoi clarity. I stared at the words like they might move if I blinked. At the bottom, in smaller letters, was something that made my lip twitch. Accountability Akai. Or Ashai, however it's pronounced. I felt personally attacked. Bob leaned in like he was studying weather. "Pick something." "You pick," I said, because spite makes me childish. Bob ignored the invitation to fight. Of course he did. He stepped up to the counter without hesitation, like he'd been here before. Like the barista didn't need to ask, "Hi, welcome, what can I get you?" Like Bob was the kind of man who belonged in places that didn't belong to anyone. He looked at the menu for exactly half a second. 2. "Sure, what do you have today?" The barista smiled, bright and easy. Bob didn't smile back, but his face softened in the way it always did when someone was doing their job. He respected labor. He respected systems that kept people from falling apart, which was ironic given the cosmic mess we were living in. He nodded at the menu. Lilikoi Clarity and Mercy Mango. He looked at me when he said the second one. Not like a question, like a decision. Like he decided I needed mercy whether I wanted it or not. I hated him for him. I also wanted to cry. Good choices. Bob didn't respond. Instead, while the barista rang it up, he tilted his head slightly. Not at the menu. Not at me. At the air? Like he was listening to something under the sound of the blender? Then he went still. Not dramatic, just paused. The way a dog pauses when it hears a noise you can't. His hands went to his pocket, fingers brushing whatever he carried there. Notes, nanos, keys, the invisible weight of responsibility. I watched him. My spine tightened. The barista's smile didn't change. Everything okay? Bob didn't answer the question. He asked his own. How's the pressure today? He said it like he was asking about the weather. The barista's eyes flickered, sharp for half a heartbeat, then softened again. Spiked around noon, she said, casual as if she'd said it 1,000 times. You felt it too? Yeah. I stared at them. Pressure? Noon? Felt it. What the hell was this? An underground club? A secret society of smoothie employees? The barista kept moving unbothered. It calmed down, mostly, still a little weird at the edges. Bob grunted, satisfied in the way someone is satisfied when the worst-case scenario hasn't happened yet. Good, thanks. The barista smiled again, and this time it looked fond. Like she knew him. Like she trusted him. Like Bob was on some kind of circuit. I swallowed hard, and anger rose up, because anger is easier than confusion. What was that? I asked as soon as we stepped aside. Bob turned to me, lifting one brow like I'd asked why the sky was blue. What was what? You. I pointed vaguely at the barista, the menu, the air. Pressure, noon, felt it too. Bob glanced around the room and I watched him take in the edges again. He lowered his voice. Just checking the vibe. The vibe? I repeated because if I didn't, I was going to start screaming. Bob shrugged like he was talking about humidity. This place gets sensitive. Sensitive, like it had feelings. Because it's Maui? I snapped. Because paradise has allergies? Bob gave me a look that said, you're trying to make me argue, and I won't. He leaned closer, not threatening, just steady. This is a neutral zone. Things run a little softer here. That means they run a little thinner. I didn't like the word thinner. I didn't like what it implied. So we're in danger, I said. You're always in danger. I blinked at him. He said it the way you say you're always mortal. Like it wasn't dramatic, it was just true. Then he did the most infuriating thing a person can do when you're trying to have an emotional crisis. He nodded at the counter. Let's sit. Drink your juice. I'm not a child, I said. You're not. He said it so simply that it robbed me of the fight. He picked up our drinks when they were ready, 2 cups bright as candy, full of fruit, maybe divine intervention, and carried them to the table like it was a normal Tuesday errand. I followed because I didn't know what else to do. When we sat down, the chair was cool beneath my thighs, and the room hummed with quiet conversations and blenders and the soft clink of ice. For a moment, it almost worked. For a moment, the bright place tried to hold me. And then my grief stood up inside me and said, not today! I leaned forward over the table, staring at Bob like he was a locked door. What do you not want to tell me what you know? I asked. Bob set his cup down with care, like he didn't trust his hands to be casual. He looked at me. And I remember thinking, very clearly, that he didn't look at me like a man looking at a woman. He looked at me like an adult looking at a child standing too close to a cliff. A responsibility he'd chosen. A promise he'd made. And that made me angrier than flirting ever could have. What I know and what you can use are 2 different things. There it is, I said. The system, the rules, the procedures. Bob didn't flinch. He lifted my cup slightly and nudged it toward me. Drink. I stared at the cup like it was poison. Drink, he repeated, and the second time it was gentler. Please. I wanted to throw it in his face. Instead, I took a sip because the taste hit my tongue, sweet, sharp, bright, and for half a second I remembered what it felt like to be alive without pain. Then the pain came back, offended. Bob watched me swallow like he was taking attendance. I slammed the cup down. This is stalling. Bob's jaw tightened. He looked tired in a way Maui couldn't fix. It's keeping you upright. I don't want upright, I snapped. I want answers. Bob opened his mouth, and for one dangerous moment, I thought he was going to say it. I thought he was going to tell me where God was. Or wasn't. I saw the words pressing up behind his teeth. Then he swallowed them like broken glass. He looked away. His fingers tapped the side of his cup, once, twice, like he was counting down. Rounds. We've got something to take care of. I laughed sharp. Of course we do! Bob stood, and I knew even then that he hadn't brought me here to heal me. Not really. He'd brought me here to buy time. And time, apparently, was the only thing he knew how to spend. Next time, on The Trouble with Angels, the Holiday Inn Express has continental breakfast and continental-level consequences. 2 archangels walk into the most beige building imaginable and feel the universe flinch. A document that should smell like God doesn't. And in the metallic hum of the ice machine, an ancient family instinct wakes up. If the world feels this wrong, you don't face it alone. You call the family. You've been listening to The Trouble with Angels by Glory Fink. And if today's episode hit that specific nerve where grief meets this is fine lighting, please be extra gentle with yourself. Drink water, eat something, let your nervous system unclench 1 millimeter at a time. That counts. If you're in the US or Canada, you can call or text 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. In the UK and ROI, Samaritans are available at 116-123. In Australia, Lifeline is 131114. And if you're in immediate danger, please call your local emergency number. If you want to help this story keep finding its people, you can tap the heart button, engagement is magic, leave a comment, Bob will pretend he doesn't care, but he absolutely keeps stats. Share this episode with a friend who loves celestial chaos, cozy horror vibes, or divine workplace comedy. You can toss a coin in our coffee fund, Divine Contributions, always welcome, on Ko-fi, Venmo, and Cash App, link in show notes. You can also check out The Trouble with Angels at Glorious Magazine at gloryfink.substack.com, link in show notes, and check out Coffee Bunny Crafters Cafe at coffeebunny.substack.com, link in show notes. You can find me, Glory Fink, as Glory Writes the Blues on social media, Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, TikTok, and Threads. And remember, when the air feels too perfect, check the edges. Reality might be peeling. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in Chapter 11. Goodbye!